It's your Friday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day. Hope you guys are having a great day out there today. A busy show because it was a busy Thursday night. The Vikings, Timberwolves, and Wild all played, of course, last night. 2 out of 3 isn't bad, although I think if we were being choosy, if you were a Minnesota sports fan who cares about all 3 of those teams, you probably would have given up the Wolves or the Wild for a Vikings win. Vikings win would have been a little bit more meaningful than early season wins for either of those teams. Alas, that's not how it goes. Wolves, a nice win, a comeback win at Sacramento. We'll get to that towards the end of the show. The Wild win again. We'll get to that at the end of the show as well. Phil Miller from the Star Tribune joins me in a little bit to talk Twins. Curious time to talk Twins? Well, not really. World Series starts today. Phil just did his kind of 40-man roster breakdown for the Twins. And, of course, I wanted to pick his brain, get his thoughts on the Twins being up for sale and what the new TV situation all means. So Phil will join me in a little bit for some off-season Twins talk as we head into the World Series for the Dodgers and Yankees and the off-season for everybody else. First, though, what did I miss? Obvious that I'm starting with the Vikings. Obvious that there is a lot to not like about that 30-20 loss to the Rams. I will say from the jump, I had a bad feeling about this one as I thought about it more as the week went along. You had the Rams who were 2-4, but a lot of that because of injuries to their skill position players, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua also back. Both those guys had missed most of the season, so Matthew Stafford finally dealing with a full complement of skill position players, and it showed. Although, I don't think the Vikings defense should have been as bad as it was, but just looking at it, the Rams are probably better than what we've seen because the offense has been limited, and you got the Thursday night game, short week for the Vikings, traveling to the West Coast. Felt like a half-schedule loss to begin with, even if the Vikings were clearly the favored team coming in. So Rams, a desperate team, 2-4, have to have this one if they're going to have a meaningful season. You got trade deadline stuff swirling all around. Didn't love the timing of this matchup as I thought about it more. All that said, the Vikings, outside of basically 2 quick scores that they got, 14-7 early lead, they just looked flat. They looked flat again. A lot of self-inflicted problems, a lot of third down penalties, although some of them were of the questionable ilk. Referees calling some weird stuff, especially the one at midfield that extended the drive. I think it was on Byron Murphy. He barely did anything on that drive. I think it was the second Rams touchdown drive maybe, but kind of drives me crazy when you see little stuff like that. But again, they did enough to lose this game that we don't need to blame the officiating at the end or blame the officiating in the middle. Yes, they botched the missed face mask on Sam Darnold in the end zone, that basically the game-ending safety. But even at that point, with the Vikings are down 8, no timeouts left. Even if they call that, they're going to have the ball at, the 17, the 18 with a minute 35 left, something like that. Got to go the length of the field with no timeouts, score a touchdown and a 2-point conversion just to tie. Like, looking at the win probability, there's still, even if they get that call, they're probably still sitting at like 5 or 10%. So I think it was easier for Kevin O'Connell to have his reaction to that play than it was for Cheryl Reeve to have a more muted reaction last Sunday when the Lynx lost on the free throws, the missed travel, things like that. Game 5 of the WNBA Finals, a do-or-die game, much different than Game 7 of an NFL season, even if those are even if those are big games. Every game in the NFL is a big game. I feel like the Vikings, were not in a position where one call was going to change the outcome one way or the other. It was going to give them new life. It certainly would have given them life. It took their last gasp away. And by the way, the Rams gave them a gift of like 40 seconds on that previous play when they went out of bounds on that third down run. So they had a chance. They had a gasp, but it wasn't much of a gasp. And so I was happy to hear Kevin O'Connell after the game have a much different reaction than Cheryl Reeve. Even if I think the circumstances were different, I thought his reaction was appropriate. Here's what he said about that call and how they played overall.
it looked like he got a pretty good amount of face mask there. Not going to get into, the call or no call and all that stuff. It's just, I told our team, officiating and all that stuff, like for us to talk about that, for us to seek comfort in that is not how we're going to respond to this. It's just not going to happen. And I'm going to do the same thing right now. I really don't have a comment on whether it looked like he got a piece of the face mask, but they didn't think so they didn't throw the flag.
And here's the thing, just too many mistakes, right? Too many self-inflicted things. After those first 2 touchdowns, they didn't get in the end zone again. They settled for field goals when they got down deep. They had to settle for a field goal from like the 4 or 5 when they couldn't get in the end zone. They made it 17-14, but you're like, this isn't a game where threes are going to be good. The drive after that, when they're driving down to score, Jalen Naylor drops a wide open 3rd down pass after Darnold extends the play with a nice scramble. And you had just play after play, penalties, just botched plays, and they only ran 47 offensive plays. O'Connell talked about that after the game. Only 47 offensive plays. And that's been kind of a trend this year. They just aren't running a lot of plays. The Rams had the ball for almost 34 minutes. They ran over 60 plays, not even including the kneel downs at the end of the game. So if you just look at that, if you look at the big picture of how the game went, of game flow, this was not the Vikings team that you were expecting to see. Now, big picture, they're 5-2. If you would have told me that after 7 games, this team would be 5-2, I think I would have been pretty impressed. Like, I would have said, yeah, we'll take 5-2 at this point. I thought 4-3, they would be lucky to be 4-3. I was thinking this was not a great team, that they might have 2 or 3 wins at this little mini-bye junction of the season. Instead, of course, they start 5-0, so 5-2 feels like a letdown, but it's not a letdown in the big picture. This is still a team that has a lot going for it, a team that has a lot to clean up. Obviously, the defense hasn't been good these last 2 weeks. They sorely miss Blake Cashman. You could not have known how much they missed Blake Cashman until you watched the middle of their defense these last 2 games. The middle of the field, the middle of the field where Blake Cashman has things on lockdown has been wide open for both Detroit and the Rams now, running very similar style offenses, short intermediate routes, get the ball out quick, get it to your playmakers. They have sorely missed Blake Cashman in those scenarios, so they need to get him back healthy. They need to get themselves in a better spot where they're getting to the quarterback more. The pass rush was non-existent. Yeah, I know the Rams were getting the ball out. Matthew Stafford is a veteran who's got some escapability still, but they have a lot to clean up. That said, like I said, this is still a team where you feel good. You feel 5-2 at this point. Yeah, they've dropped 2 games. Yeah, both of those are conference games, one of them a division game, but the schedule is going to get a lot easier right now. They've played probably the toughest stretch of their schedule. They got all these AFC teams coming up that aren't that great. They should be able to rattle off 3 or 4 wins in these next 4 or 5 games, start feeling better about themselves again before things get tougher towards the end of the season. So I guess big picture, you still have to feel pretty good about this. I thought Sam Darnold had a really good game. They just didn't do enough around him. He maybe, left 1 or 2 plays out on the field, but by and large, he wasn't the problem. The problem is the guys around him, especially Jordan Addison's been non-existent. Jalen Naylor doesn't make the play he needs to make. Aaron Jones couldn't get much going in the second half. The offensive line wasn't great. The Christian Darrisaw injury is very troubling, especially since Quesenberry was basically a turnstile for a lot of those pass rush snaps towards the end of the game. So a lot to clean up, a lot to worry about. But big picture-wise, trying to bring this full circle, I do still feel like this is a good team that's in good shape, but maybe we can stop talking a little bit for now about loftier expectations beyond trying to make the playoffs. Joined today by Phil Miller from the Star Tribune. I've been meaning to have you on for maybe a week or two, then football keeps getting in the way, but I found an occasion now, Phil. World Series starts Friday. I believe you're going to be there because you're not just a beat writer, you're a baseball hobbyist, a baseball enthusiast. So you're going to go watch the Dodgers and Yankees. It's a couple of plucky small market teams just trying to do their best.
Yes, it's nice that New York has somebody to root for in the wake of the Liberties championship. It's
yes,
yeah.
But the reason I wanted to catch up with you, it was a newsy end of the year for the Twins, not just, the way things ended on the field, which was certainly a disappointment, and we talked about that, but not long after, we get two pretty significant pieces of off-field news. One, the TV situation, and that they'll be going with MLB TV in 25, and then a day or two later, we find out the Pohlads are putting the team up for sale, or exploring a sale at least. So I wanted to pick your brain on that, as well as the roster breakdown that came out the other day. So maybe we could start with your thoughts on the timing of finding out they're up for sale, and kind of what this all means from your perspective.
What it all means? It means that something that I have been wondering about since Target Field got built has finally come to fruition. I thought when Target Field was built, the value of the team went way, way up, and I thought at that time that this would be the guy that bought the team, the current ownership's grandfather, had died a year before the ballpark opened, and I thought that they might want to cash in on that. But actually, Carl Pohlad's son, Jim, ran the team for another 12 years and never gave any hint to it. But it does make sense in the notion that it is still co-owned by the 10 descendants of Carl Pohlad, his 3 sons and their 7 children. And that's 10 people that have different interests, different backgrounds. And I don't think that there's much evidence that many of them are really big baseball fans that see the team as something they enjoy owning, especially since the family name has kind of become a bad word in the area lately. I had one member of the family say they're really, really tired of the family being mocked publicly, and you can't blame them. And we're talking about $1.5 billion. Would you rather, see your name in editorials in the Star Tribune talking about they should sell, or would you rather have, 1/10 of that is $150 million? I guess I'm not surprised. I thought it would have happened before now.
So that makes a lot of sense when you frame it that way, and maybe the family's kind of interest in the team kind of mirrors the kind of the demographics of baseball fans in general, right? Like it's an older demographic. I still love baseball. You love baseball, but the kids these days, Phil, do not love baseball as much as they did. And if it is split 10 ways, it makes sense. I think they might put that money to different use rather than, like you say, owning a team, even if it does make them some money, and even if it's not the only operating income they have. The families, definitely got more holdings than just that.
A decade ago, Bill Pohlad is an Academy Award nominated movie producer. A decade ago, I thought that it would be reasonable to expect that they would sell the team so he could invest the money in movies that he was making. It didn't happen. They held on till now, but I'm not surprised that the other members of the family said, why don't we cash this out? It's one thing to say you're billionaires on paper, but it's another thing to be able to actually access that money. And I think the timing is pretty good. Baseball values, team values, franchise values are as high as they've ever been. We'll see if they stay that way with the TV situation, kind of a muddle right now. But I can't blame the Twins, the Pohlad family, for wanting to do this. I would wager that Joe Pohlad, who was running it, was a no vote, because he told me in February that he expected the family would own the team for a decade at least, and I would imagine that he was the one guy that wanted to hold on to the hold on to the team and and keep it as a community asset.
It's one thing to want to sell. It's another thing to be able to sell. I'm of the mind that it makes more sense, I think, to sell this team than to buy this team. Who do you think would be who's going to buy this team at $1.5 billion?
There's a long list of billionaires, right? I don't know. You have to hope that someone wants to do it as a vanity exercise. Mark Cuban has talked about wanting to own a baseball team. I don't know if Minnesota is the one that he had in mind. People quickly race to Alex Rodriguez, who may have some ownership stake in a different franchise in town. It's assumed that he and some of his private equity partners might want to own a team. That's kind of what you want. You want someone to do it as a vanity thing and make the beat writers' lives hell with all their various antics, because it's hard for a mid-level team to make, not hard to make money, but it's hard to, I think the poll ads discovered, it's hard to stay within your budget if you're devoted to making a profit. I think the poll ads own a lot of profitable business, or have sold a few of them lately, and I think there probably was pressure on Joe not to be somebody who's running an asset that is losing money. So I think there was a lot of pressure on him through the average season to not lose money and to keep the payroll in check a little bit. He famously cut it by $30 million this year, and
they right-sized it, Phil. They didn't.
Yeah,
right-sized it.
I'm sorry, I should know the terminology. They did, and he paid the price in public relations.
Yes, he did. I keep waiting for there to be kind of a financial cliff in sports, and I've been predicting it for a decade, and I keep being wrong. To me, it feels like baseball, though, is the more perilous, especially compared to like the NFL or the NBA, just because of the TV, the regional TV. So I think you're right. I think this is not someone who's going to come in and expect this to be this kind of like never-ending upward valuation. I don't think. Maybe that changes, but I think you're right in the kind of owner they would need. It's not someone that's going to come in and try to squeeze every last dollar out of it, because there's fewer dollars to go around, it feels like.
A decade ago, Rob Manfred, I don't know, it was 2015 or so, came to spring training. He toured all the spring training sites and held a press conference at each one. And I asked him, it was just in the wake of the Dodgers setting up their TV network that they're part owners of, and signing a contract that guaranteed them, like $250 million a year. And I remember asking Manfred if he thought TV revenues was a bubble, because it seemed like it was there was a lot of money in it that people probably didn't actually want to pay. The part of your cable bill every week goes to every month. Goes to the channel that shows Twins games, and he said, "Oh no, we've." The baseball is a valuable commodity. Sports are valuable. It's the one thing you want to watch live, and that's valuable to advertisers. But I think it is turning out to be a bit of a bubble, and and teams like the Twins are discovering that it's not the moneymaker that it was, just 2 years ago for the Twins.
That's a good segue into the TV conversation, because, like I said, not long before we learned of the ownership putting the team up for sale, we heard that they are going to MLB, that model that if you the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, I believe. I'm trying to remember who else is included in all that, but teams have gone to
Guardians,
MLB.
Brewers.
They're going to be producing the games this year. different kind of the distribution will be a little bit different. There's not kind of this guarantee baked in, but you do have the digital revenue. You do have the standalone product, which we've been clamoring for a while. We'll finally have that. What is your sense of, the thought process behind that and kind of what they expect or hope to get out of this financially or otherwise?
Now, the interesting part about these regional sports networks is how their relationship with baseball has really turned sour since their bankruptcy. You listen to the bankruptcy court hearings, which I have listened to a whole bunch of them over the past year and a half. This has really, really dragged on. But they're getting more and more contentious with baseball's lawyer, James Bromley. And it's clear that baseball is going to oppose the final resolution when the networks, now the FanDuel networks,
right,
try to come out of bankruptcy. They are making new deals, making contracts with NHL and NBA teams, but it's baseball that is really fighting them and I think wants to be done with them. And part of that is a reflection. One of the very first hearings I was at, the one June of 2003, when the Twins were suing to get paid because
2023, yes,
23. When Bally's had missed a payment and the Twins sued to get them to pay up. Rob Manfred testified then, and he said that baseball's his dream is that baseball would have what he called one-stop shopping, where there's one place where you go to pay to watch a game or a team, a month of games, a whole season of games, or every game. And that was the model that baseball is hoping to put together. And I think that they are indeed now trying to do that by bringing as many teams on board as they can to make it a more attractive product. And I think Twins fans will be able to pay a fee in order to watch a whole season's worth of games or an individual game, whatever you want. Whether or not they can convince the Yankees, Dodgers, Cubs, Red Sox, those are the teams that own their own networks,
right,
to come aboard. I suspect that Manfred has a strategy to accomplish that, but I think MLB hopes in 2 or 3 years to be able to offer that on their app.
I believe it was at those hearings that we learned just exactly how much the Twins were getting from then Bally Sports North, now, like you said, FanDuel Sports North, back to FSN, I guess. It was, $55 million in 2023, and we never got the number in 2024, and I suspect that's for good reason, and we have no real idea what they're going to be getting from MLB in 2025. We can only guess, but significantly less than 55 million is kind of the talking point, right?
Yeah. They reduced payroll by 30 million. I think we could make a pretty good guess as to what they were getting. And that's not all the TV money they'll get. MLB, not to the extent that football does it, but MLB does share national TV revenue equally. So they get a chunk of that. But yeah, they were getting $54 and a fraction million a year from the Bally networks, and that is a product of them being on cable TV and every subscriber paying for it. And now that only the people who want to watch it are going to pay for it, I think it's pretty clear that it's already happened that that revenue is going to largely disappear for all but the really good teams, the Yankees, Dodgers, Cubs, and Red Sox, teams that have large loyal followings.
They have expanded their reach. That was one of the biggest things they were touting, at least in the news release. And I do feel like they have basically gone out of sight, out of mind for a lot of folks. We'll see if this, puts them back in front of people who want to watch baseball. And part of that, is kind of the last thing I want to talk about. The on-field product in 2025. You did a very thorough, always entertaining roster breakdown, kind of who stays, who goes, kind of what the status of all the 40-man roster is. I got to say, reading it, there's a lot of question marks for next year, especially on the pitching staff. When you start the way they did, but then finish the way they did, 12-27, you leave yourself open to a lot of questions, and there's just arbitration guys and trade candidates and guys that you probably don't want back, but might be affordable enough that you take another chance. Like, what kind of on-field product do you think we'll see in 2025?
Well, I was struck by how much the ending colored those opinions, and I can really relate to fans as to how much how disgusted they became with the product by the end, because September really, everybody was bad in September basically, and everybody except Pablo Lopez basically. I actually think that they are reasonably well positioned. They do have three pitchers that I would say are better than average major league quality in the rotation, in Ryan, Lopez, and Ober. That's a pretty good place to start, because that is something that the Twins have lacked for a long time. They have two guys and potentially three or four that they really trust in the bullpen with leads. Again, I've covered the Twins since 2007. Pitching, you never go into the offseason and think, yeah, they're in pretty good shape pitching-wise, but they are stocked with a decent number of above-average pitchers and a decent number of candidates. One thing that this season did is it gave us a look at David Festa and Zebby Matthews and Simeon Woods Richardson. That is a good head start. It was hard to watch some of the growing up problems that they had. So I think that is a pretty good place to start. Now you talk the lineup, and as every year, health will matter, and it was surprising how some of the second-year guys took a step back, but Matt Wallner rebounded. Trevor Larnach, he played hurt a lot of the time, so it's hard to tell if he has established himself. They have Brooks Lee looks like a major leaguer. He, like everyone, had a terrible finish to the season, but I don't know. I think there's reason for optimism. You have to remember, they were in a playoff position until the Friday before the season ended.
Yeah.
I think there's reason for hope, and we'll see what they do to add to it this year. And they also have some guys coming up that are relatively close.
And the new hitting coach. We'll see if that makes a difference.
Yeah. When 6 or 7 hitting coaches around the league get fired, you think maybe it's not coaching.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. It should be an interesting offseason, especially with the potential for a sale. We'll have to see what they do roster-wise. I think they can use the thing they didn't do last year, which was add a reliable veteran starting pitcher. Maybe not a 1, 2, or 3, but someone who's maybe a little bit better than an iffy 5. That would be okay with me.
Mike, they did add one. DeSclafani. It's just that he had to have surgery in the spring.
Yes, he did.
They do. All that said about pitching, they do need to add, but I think they will.
Okay. Well, we will see. Phil, enjoy the World Series, enjoy California, and we will catch up with you again later in the offseason.
Will do, Mike. Thanks.
I appreciate the perspectives from Phil on what promises to be a very interesting offseason, a time of transition for the Twins with their ownership, with their TV situation, and maybe even with their roster. I don't expect there to be a ton of change based on what we know about their payroll, but you never know, especially with new ownership coming in, especially with the uncertainty about TV revenue. We will see what sort of team they are able to put on the field.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Let us finish with an extended cooler today. Timberwolves and Wild both in action. Timberwolves, here's the thing. Everyone bad-mouthing the Wolves after they lost to the Lakers in the opener, bad-mouthing the Wolves after they fall behind by like 10 to Sacramento midway through the third quarter. Guess what? They won 117-115. Sorry to all you Julius Randle haters out there. He went for 33 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Anthony Edwards, 32 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, including the game-winning free throws in the closing seconds after he drove to the hoop and got fouled. Defense leaves a little bit to be desired at this point, but I do believe this is going to be a good defensive team. I think they played 2 pretty tough matchups for them, the Lakers and the Kings. Splitting those 2 games, I will take it. I would take that if I was the Wolves. Naz Reid, an excellent game off the bench, by the way. 19 points, 13 rebounds. Nobody else besides Ant and Randall in the starting lineup had more than 6 points. That was interesting. Mike Conley Jr. struggling to get it going early this season with his shot. Rudy Gobert only took 2 shots in 35 minutes. It was just that kind of game. Jaden McDaniels, a slow start to the year, but starting to see how good Dante DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander-Walker are together. That second unit is going to be a force this season, especially when and if Chris Finch starts to deepen his bench a little bit more as they need it as the season goes on. I think they've got a lot of good players, a lot of capabilities on this roster. A good win, not a must win, but an important win for them, I feel like, after losing the opener, kind of reset, reimagine expectations. Wolves fans can stop saying the sky is falling. They are 1-1 now, a chance to feel a little bit better about themselves going into the home opener this weekend. Now, the Wild certainly have to be feeling good about themselves. They finally trailed in a game. They trailed Tampa Bay 2-1 in the second period of Thursday night's game. Didn't matter. Joel Eriksson-Ek ties it up late in the second period. Matt Boldy gives them the lead early in the third, and Kirill Kaprizov with the second goal of the game, an empty netter, seals it with about half a minute left. 4-2 at Tampa Bay. More importantly than just the win, they're 5-0-2. More importantly than that, they got Marc-Andre Fleury playing in this game, so it wasn't just the Gus bus standing on his head. Fleury was good, 25 shots, 23 saves, just 2 goals allowed. Had to be very good, especially in that first period. The Wild led 1-0 after 1, but just you love to see the contributions, right? 2 for Kaprizov, 1 for Eriksson-Ek, 1 for Boldy. Guys just stepping up. Their first 2 lines are really good right now. I think their third line is fine, but those top 2 lines are really humming right now, and that is the mark of a team that maybe, just maybe, is going to be better than we thought. Again, the Vikings and the Wild have been the surprising teams this season so far for Minnesota sports. Coming on the heels of the Lynx, who were certainly a surprising team. You thought the Wolves and the Twins were going to be the teams that were the breakthrough teams. Wolves very early in their season, the Twins disappointing, but maybe the Wild. Maybe we need to recalibrate with the Wild. Just 7 games in, but no regulation losses yet. They finally trailed. Like I said, they hadn't trailed in regulation all year until Thursday, but still showing the resilience to come back, win that game 4-2. Having a good road trip, playing some of these tough Eastern teams, no problem at all. Maybe it's a better team than we thought. We'll have to see as the season goes along. That will do it for me today. Hopefully there's no more officiating controversies over the weekend. Gophers versus Maryland, Wolves home opener. Lots of good stuff going on there. Until then, I am Michael Rand, back at it Monday with Royce.